Welcome all my fellow Redskin brethren and sistren. It's news that's nightly about the Redskins. Welcome to the Redskins Nightly News. I, of course, am your host, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. Let's get to our lead story. So, yesterday on the Junkie Show, for those of you not local, it's a program that has been going on for almost 20 years now. I think it's four local radio show talk hosts that have been friends for quite some time, doing a program talking about DC sports, and they also have some insight and some behind-the-scene knowledge. When you've been doing it as long as they have, you have contacts within the industry, guys on the inside that can get you some knowledge. And so from time to time, they break stories, they have news. And one of the junkies yesterday brought to the forefront something that he found out, or a source gave him some information that Jay Gruden wanted to cut Adrian Peterson. Now, how true is that? No one can confirm nor deny that, but the junks over the years have been pretty accurate with their news. Again, when you've been doing it as long as they have, you have contacts and inside sources that bring things to you. And if you don't think it's credible, then you don't put it out to the masses. He brought this to his radio program, so that leads me to believe that there probably is some validity to it. And as I put together some of the pieces of the puzzle for you guys, you'll start to think to yourself, maybe there was a little something to this story and a little traction to this. Let's dive in deeper and take a closer look at this story. So remember yesterday when I talked about how I was shocked at how Jay Gruden was so definitive in his praise of Darius Geis, and how Jay was so definitive on how much he would play and how he was going to be the guy that took the bulk of the carries. And I told you how Jay, how he always likes to do, went into Redskin back history and named 8 million backs. And then at the very end, he threw in Adrian Peterson as somewhat of a throwaway line. Oh yeah, and we also got Adrian Peterson, and he can help too. And I'm like, what? And this is a guy that rushed for over 1,000 yards for you, was by far and away your best player on this football team from an offensive standpoint at the skill positions. And you're just using him as a throwaway line? It's like, yep, Darius Geis is our guy. I love Samaje Perine. He's going to do big things in Cincinnati. And oh, by the way, yeah, we got Adrian Peterson on the roster too. He can help. So I found that odd, and I mentioned that, but I didn't connect the dots then. Now with this story being released and, all of the questions that were thrown at Jay at the press conference, starting to make a little bit of sense. So obviously we know that the Redskins had an issue at running back last year. They drafted Darius Geis to be their guy. He got injured. That prompted them to have to go out on the streets and find a guy like Adrian Peterson. He was available. He was ready. He was in shape. And he came in and was a difference maker early in the season, and really was a difference maker late in the season. If you remember that game versus Tennessee, he single-handedly tried to will us to a victory with Josh Johnson at quarterback. He also was big in the Jacksonville game. Remember, he started off that game really slow, but finished off strong and helped the Redskins win that football game in Jacksonville to keep the season alive. So Peterson, to no end, was the best player the Redskins had from a skills position standpoint last season. Now, you fast forward to this year, Geis is healthy, and Jay Gruden all offseason, who's the one running back he's been talking up the entire offseason? Yep, you guessed it, a guy that's no longer on the roster in Samaje Perine. Why do you think Jay was talking him up so much? I think I know the answer. I think Jay all along wanted Geis to be the guy, and because he knew of the past, and I talked about this last year when we first signed Adrian Peterson, and I said, look, unless you plan on giving Adrian Peterson the rock the bulk majority of the time, you have a problem on your hands. We saw it in Arizona. We saw it in New Orleans, which is why the Saints traded him. He was in Sean Payton's ear week one, following and stalking him on the sidelines and balking at him. So if you're not going to give him touches, this is a guy that is very proud and feels like he can still play at a high level, and proved it last season, so he feels like he should be in the game. If he's not in the game, and by all accounts, Jay Gruden sounds like he's hell-bent on giving Darius Geis every opportunity to put a stranglehold on his running back position, then you got to assume that Adrian Peterson not going to be happy about that. Now you add in something that we found out this offseason, that this guy's in debt. He's in financial trouble, and the Redskins signed him to a deal that is based and tied into his play on the field. A lot of his money can be earned by hitting milestones throughout the season, like 1,000 yards rushing, like playing in all 16 games, like surpassing 200 carries on the season. These are all things that are in his contract potentially that are going to help him make money. Incentives, okay, bonuses. If he's not playing a ton, that's also going to frustrate him because he's in debt and he needs money and he needs to be able to hit these milestones. The only way he's going to be able to do that is if he's on the field participating. So Jay Gruden, I think, understood that dynamic and said, I don't want him around. He's going to be a distraction. I'm coaching for my life here as Washington Redskins head coach. I don't need another distraction. I've already dealt with Trent not being here the entire offseason. I don't need another distraction. So he talked up Samaje all preseason long, all a mini camp long, all of the off-season OTAs. Samaje. Man, Samaje's look good. Sort of trying to brainwash us into thinking that Samaje was going to come out and be this different back. We saw differently on the field. He looked like the same OP Ryan, okay? And he stunk. And so that prompted the front office to say, hey, look, man, if we're just going with the best three backs, Samaje Perine isn't one of them. And Jay was trying to convince them otherwise because he simply didn't want Adrian Peterson on the roster. And so he continues to build Samaje up despite Samaje being on the Bengals roster. He said, well, Samaje's going to have a great career with the Bengals. He's going to fit in well there because he's a really good back. Okay, so sure, you're right, Jay, and maybe he will do well for them. But bottom line is Adrian Peterson is one of the better backs on this football team, and he probably needs to be here. But I get what Jay is saying. If you believe there's some validity to this, Jay understands that there's going to be a problem. If Adrian Peterson isn't playing, there's going to be a major problem with 26. And he is one of those guys that's not afraid to say how he feels on the sidelines. We've seen him do it to a coach with more clout than Jay Gruden and Sean Payton. If he'll do it to a Super Bowl winning coach like Sean Payton, he'll do it to a guy like Jay Gruden. This could be a story worth looking out for because Darius Geis, and we're going to talk about what Jay said at his press conference today, a little bit later on in the program, but that doesn't bode well for a guy like Adrian Peterson moving forward. But in any event, that's an interesting dynamic there. Would love to hear what you guys have to say in the comment section of this video in terms of what you think is going to happen with that situation. And is there some legs there with Jay Gruden and Adrian Peterson and Jay potentially wanting to cut AD? Let's get to in other news. I referenced the coaches talking at the podium yesterday, said we were going to talk about what they said. We'll go back to Jay Gruden's presser a couple of days ago, and then we'll wrap things up with him and defensive coordinator Greg Minuski at the podium today, and then we'll move forward. So Jay talked about Jordan Reed's injury and him practicing a couple of days ago, or yesterday, I should say. And Jay mentioned that Jordan was working on the side field on, in individual work, still hasn't been cleared by the independent neurologist to be able to participate in practice. So as of right now, Jordan not cleared, but he's getting closer. And Jay said, look, these things take time. You know how it is with concussions. I've talked about it ad nauseum. When you're talking about concussions, you just don't know how long it's going to take for a guy. And all concussions are not created equal, and all players dealing with concussions are not created equal. So again, we don't know the severity of it. That was what Jay was pretty much preaching a couple of days ago. Now you fast forward to today. I think the most impactful thing Jay talked about today was injuries and guys that could potentially play or not play in the upcoming game versus the Eagles. We'll start with Jordan Reed because we started with him already. And he's a guy that Jay said is progressing. He's still on the individual side of things, doing his own thing off on the side field, still working towards getting back. But again, Jay said, we want to see how he does, with waking up in the morning and going to sleep and how he's dealing with, sensitivity to light and all of those things that come with having concussions. If those symptoms start to subside, then you'll see Jordan Reed potentially line up on Sunday for the Redskins. It sounds like he's getting close. Listening to Jay, but again, these things you cannot tell. One day he feels good, the next day he doesn't. And you need consecutive days, and that's what Jay said. We got to start stringing these things together. Consecutive days of limited to no symptoms, and then we can start talking about him potentially practicing. He said one thing we're not going to do is rush him back. If he's not ready, he won't go in week 1. So we'll see what happens. If he doesn't play in week 1, I feel confident that he'll be ready to go in week 2, but we'll see. I won't rule Jordan Reed out for week 1. And Jay sounded like a guy that was optimistic that Jordan Reed might be able to go week 1 versus the Eagles. Meanwhile, he was asked about Fabian Moreau. All right, asked about Fabian Moreau. All right, you know who I'm talking to out there. And he said that, Fab was coming along, and he's another guy that may play. Remember, I talked about Fab potentially being out this game and didn't look good for him. He's a guy that Jay said over there working on the side field. He said if he doesn't practice tomorrow, somewhat full go, then you'll know he's not going to play on Sunday. But if he goes tomorrow, so the real telling day for Fab Moreau will be tomorrow's practice. If he's able to go, he'll probably be able to suit up. And that leads me to Greg Minuski, who I thought had one bit of information that I thought was pertinent. Everything else was just kind of throwaway lines by him. I thought there were some garbage questions being asked of Greg Minuski, and we'll circle back to Jay Gruden because I want to talk about the running back position. But with Greg Minuski, because we were already on the topic of corner with Fab Moreau in the slot, he was asked about that position, and he said, look, we've got 2 guys working right now, and we'll see which one benefits us the best in the slot. Right now, we've got Greg Stroman and Jimmy Moreland working in the slot. We'll see which one of the 2 gives us the best option there, and then we'll move forward. So I kept dismissing Jay's theory that Greg Stroman could play in the slot. Like, nah, I'm good on Greg. Let me see the people's champ out there, the people's corner, getting it done. I want to see him get an opportunity to play, see what he has. And I thought that's what the Redskins were going to do. And that may ultimately be what happens. But right now, it sounds like Greg Stroman is getting an opportunity to show what he is capable of in the slot. And we'll see if he's able to beat out Jimmy Moreland for slot reps, especially if Fab Moreau can't go week 1 versus the Eagles. Sounds like Greg Stroman right now has the leg up. If you listen to Greg Minuski speak, sounds like Greg Stroman is a guy that you should not discount. I've discounted him all week. Some of you have as well, as I've been reading in the comment sections. I think that this is a guy you shouldn't discount if you're a Redskins fan, that Greg Stroman may be a reality in the slot for us week 1 versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's circle back to Jay quickly before we move on to our final segment, or one of our final segments. Jay talked about the running back position because he was grilled during this presser about the Adrian Peterson, not necessarily the comment about Jay wanting to part ways with him on the roster, but just could Adrian Peterson be deactivated? Because there was a comment Jay had the other day about having 3 backs on game day, only having 3 backs active. And he said one of those guys must be a contributor on special teams. So if you're going to have 3 backs and one of them has to be a contributor on specials, well, Darius Geis definitely isn't that guy. Chris Thompson definitely isn't that guy. So then that leaves the 3rd back. And we've got to assume that guy isn't going to be Adrian Peterson at this point of his career. He's not, nor has he ever been a key contributor on specials. So that makes you believe that that's got to be a Wendell Smallwood type of back that he's referring to. And if that's the case, then where does that leave AD? So there were questions fielded by Jay Gruden about that specific scenario, that if in the case that you felt like you needed to keep 3 backs, and Jay talked about, hey, look, we've got some injuries right now that we're not sure of. We don't know what's going to happen with Jordan Reed, and maybe J.P. Holtz has to be called up. You only get 46 of these spots. We got to see what happens with Caleb Brantley. We may need another defensive lineman spot there because he's dealing with a little bit of an injury. We also got to take a look at what's going on at all the other positions. I just talked about an injury at corner with Fab Moreau. So he's like, look, we may need a spot here or there. And we may have to trim off the fat somewhere, and running back may be that position. And if that's the case, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. That doesn't sound good for a guy like AD. What do you think, if we're talking about AD being disgruntled about lack of touches, and what we've seen throughout Jay's career as Redskins head coach is that backup, first and second down back, that backup main back, all right, that guy's not getting a bunch of carries, all right? It's not 15 for that guy and 11 for that guy, all right? It's usually 19, 21 for that guy and 5 or 6 for the other guy. It's not going to be a bunch of subbing in back and forth for, hey, you get this whole possession, you get that whole possession. It's generally, if you're my first and second down back, you're going to be my bell cow. Chris Thompson's going to spell you on third downs and obvious passing situations. And then if there's some table scraps left over, that third guy will get the opportunity to get in the game. And that's not going to sit well with AD. If that's not sitting well with him, what do you think is going to happen when he's told he's inactive for a game? That could be a really touchy situation. Again, we could be running ourselves right into a brick wall here with another controversy. Let's hope that's not the case. But if injuries subside and Jay's able to keep the running back count at 4, then I think we won't have to answer these questions. You'll just have to deal with, is he getting enough touches? But if they have to trim off some fat at running back because of injuries at other positions, and they got to carry an extra guy or two at other positions, we could be looking at a situation where we've got AD not even active, which sounds asinine at this point. I'm not saying, I'm just saying. Keep your eye on what could be a developing story with this football team as we move on to our final segment really of the night. And that is week 1's matchup on the road at Philadelphia at the Link, 1:00 p.m. on Sunday afternoon. I've talked about some matchups that are key, but stop me if you've heard this before. All right. Keys to the game for the Redskins. Dominate the line of scrimmage. I think that's going to be probably the biggest one. Normally it's turnovers and penalties and those things, and I'll mention those here in a second. But to me, the line of scrimmage is going to be important in this game because of Eric Flowers at left guard, Donald Penn at left tackle. We feel like there could be some issues on that left side of the offensive line. Not so much Penn as much as Flowers. And we think the Eagles could take full advantage of that with some really good interior defensive linemen. They've got some guys that can really hurt you. They added another one in the offseason from the Jacksonville Jaguars and Malik Jackson. Obviously, they've got Fletcher Cox. This could get ugly very quickly for the Redskins if they're not sure in their protection schemes, and if they don't offer a little bit of help to Eric Flowers on some situations where they know they're going to have to pass it or maybe quick penetration on a run play. They're going to have to make adjustments. Again, I've always said that Chase Roulier, if you've got a choice between helping Brandon Sheriff on the right side or helping Eric Flowers on the left, there shouldn't even be a debate nor a hesitation. You should automatically look to the left to see if he needs help first, and then your head should be on a swivel to check on Brandon Sheriff. But again, all help needs to be given to Eric Flowers first and foremost if you want to keep Case Keenum upright in this game and give the running backs a chance to actually get to the line of scrimmage without instant penetration into the backfield and making them have to make a guy miss right off the bat. So I think winning the line of scrimmage is going to be key against the Eagles. Offensively, got to get to Wentz, got to stop the run, make them one-dimensional. And then, again, Wentz hasn't played all preseason. I don't know what that means. I don't know if he's going to come out rusty. Remember, this is a guy that missed the latter portion of last season. So if you're talking about true game action, Carson Wentz hasn't had any in over 7-8 months now. So you're talking about a guy that could come into the game a little rusty. We're hoping that's the case and we're able to take full advantage. But the only way you're able to take advantage of that is if you're able to stop the run, force them into some long situations down and distance-wise, and then get after Carson Wentz. We've got to be able to pressure him with just 4. You don't want to continuously blitz, but you do want to mix it up and make him have to decipher what the Redskins are doing on the back end. But again, it starts in the trenches with the Redskins in this game on both sides. Protecting Case Keenum, opening up holes in the run game, and also getting after Carson Wentz and stopping the Eagles' rushing attack that I think is going to be much better in 2019. I've talked about individual matchups, but I'm going to reference them again. Zach Ertz has been a Redskin killer over the life of his career. Even when the Eagles weren't good, Zach Ertz was still good. I think one game he might have set a record for himself. I think he had like 17 catches on a Saturday night versus the Redskins one year. He's killed the Redskins routinely. We've got to find a way to limit his impact on this game. We know Carson Wentz's favorite target is Zach Ertz, and he'll throw it to him till it hurts. And we don't want it to hurt against us. We need to find a way. I'm not saying stop him, just slow him down. They've got some big targets in Alshon Jeffrey. Never, ever trust a man with two first names. Also have another big target now in the newly acquired draft pick, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, who had himself one hell of a preseason. So they got some guys to get the football to that are bigger targets. We're going to have to contend with that. Also, we're going to need our safeties to be really good in run support, but also doing their job and minding their business and their keys on the back end as well. Plays never over with Carson Wentz. We've seen that against the Redskins in particular in the past, where he's broken contain, or we thought we had him bagged up and somehow he's able to get away and get to a safe place where he can throw the football down the field. So we have to also remember that the play is never over with Carson Wentz. Now you get to all of the things that you say every single week. And again, stop me if you've heard these before. Can't turn the football over, or at least have to win the turnover battle. Yeah, we're going to probably turn it over once in this game, if I had to guess, at least once. All right. But if you're going to turn it over once, then you need to get two in return. All right. You got to have some discipline in this game. You can't have a bunch of penalties. Penalties will kill you. You know what's good? 2nd and 4. You know what's not good? 2nd and 20. All right. That's going to kill you. 2nd and 14. That's going to kill you. All right. 6-yard gain on 1st down, and then you get a holding penalty on 2nd down, and now it's 2nd and 14. That's going to kill drives. All right. Have to be disciplined in the penalty department. We can't have pre-snap procedural penalties like delay of game, false start. Can't have those foolish holding penalties to negate big plays. Again, opportunities that come our way, got to take advantage. Can't have drops. We had the drop season in the preseason. Can't have those in the regular season. All right. Can't have a 3rd down conversion dropped and have to punt and put the defense back on the field. All right. Opportunities that come our way, got to take advantage. Look, I like this spot for the Redskins. I actually think we have a legitimate chance. Vegas thinks we have 0 chance. In certain books, I saw it as high as Redskins 10-point dogs going into this game. But in most situations, I saw it at 9. And that's the biggest, by far the biggest margin of error in terms of any team in week one's action. Vegas is giving the Redskins 0 chance to go on the road and beat the Eagles. They think we're going to get killed. All right. I don't think that's the case. I don't think we're going to win, though. All right. I think we're going to be in the ball game, however. And so this is how I see the game playing out. I see the Redskins losing this football game 24-16. All right. And yes, only 16 points, 3 field goals, 1 touchdown. We're going to be an offensively challenged team for the better part of this season until a guy like Dwayne Haskins potentially gets in. Maybe Case Keenum gets this thing revved up and we start scoring points a lot sooner rather than later. But I think we're going to struggle offensively with all the moving parts, potentially no Jordan Reed, a lot of young receivers. Paul Richardson was another guy that Jay Gruden mentioned during his presser that I forgot to mention earlier. He said he's starting to ramp it up. He's starting to get to full speed. They're getting encouraged by what they've seen from Paul Richardson. And they said that they think he'll be ready to rock and roll and look good and be able to open up come week 1 versus the Philadelphia Eagles. But when you double back to looking at this offense, I just don't know what we're going to get, especially with all these young receivers. I think that we're going to have a little bit of a struggle early on, maybe throughout the remainder of the season or the duration of the season offensively. And so I think the Eagles are going to jump out to a 14-0 lead on us early in the game, and it looks like it's going to get ugly quick. But I think, and one of those touchdowns is going to be courtesy of a Redskins turnover that leads to points. And so the Redskins are going to settle down in the game after a rough start where the Eagles jump out early. They're going to settle in. And the score is going to be 14-6 at the half. Redskins are going to settle in defensively. Offensively, they're going to move the football, but they're going to find it hard to get into the end zone, settle for a couple of field goals. Eagles are going to then come out in the second half, move it down the field, get into the end zone, and open up a 21-6 lead. Then the Redskins are going to mount a bit of a rally. They're going to score a touchdown. They're going to kick a field goal. They're going to cut it to a 21-16 deficit. Eagles are then going to score a field goal, extend the lead out to 8. The Redskins are going to have one final opportunity to move it down the field, score a touchdown, and tack on a 2-point conversion. They're going to fail on a 4th down to move the sticks and get it into the end zone, and they're going to lose this football game at Philadelphia 24-16. We may walk away encouraged, but we're going to be disappointed because we're going to see that as a game where there was opportunities to win and we let it slip through our fingers. But that's how I see this game ending up. I'd love to hear from you guys as to how you think this game is going to play out. So much so, let's get to the poll results from yesterday's poll. And yesterday, I came at you guys aggressively because of the lack of participation. That looks a lot better. 177 of you voted, and I want to see that number increased again. Over 2,000 of you watched the video yesterday. Okay, that means that there should be no less than 500 of you on this poll answering this poll and giving us something to talk about. But 177, I won't poo-poo that. All right. So 111 of you think that Terry McLaurin or Kelvin Harmon are going to be our standout receivers and going to step up and be the guy with the highest output in 2019. I think a lot of you probably think that guy's going to be Terry McLaurin. Trey Quinn or Paul Richardson comes in at second at 49. And then bringing up the rear, which it should be, is Steven Sims or Robert Davis. I think both of those guys, they're going to impact this team at some point, but I don't think they're going to get enough targets to actually lead this team in receiving. So Terry McLaurin, Kelvin Harmon, a good option. I would have went with Trey Quinn, Paul Richardson. Again, if either one of those guys stay healthy, I think they're going to get, especially Quinn, I think he's going to have a ton of targets. Richardson is a guy that can take the top off the defense, so I think he's going to have a high average per catch during the season. If he's able to stay healthy, that's always been his issue. We'll see what happens. But McLaurin and Harmon are your choice for the Redskin receiver with the highest output in 2019. Not a bad selection at all. Let's get to today's poll question, which reads, which or what will be the result of week one's battle at Philadelphia? All right. A blowout loss, a close loss, or a close win. The reason why a blowout win isn't up there because I just don't see that as a realistic possibility. If we get out of Philadelphia and survive with a win, it's not going to be 29-10. It's going to be 29-26. It's going to be 29-23. Either way, it's not going to be the Redskins running away with the football game. So either you get blown out in this game, which is a possibility. I don't think it's going to happen, but Vegas seems to think that that's the case. It could be a close loss, which I think is going to be the case. I think the Redskins are going to be in this game. They're going to have a shot, but they're just going to fall short. Or it could be a close win. What do you think is going to happen? We will answer this question with your poll results on Monday, and we'll already know the results of the game. So I love the format here that we'll be able to see what you thought going into the game. So we'll definitely come back to this one. There's no excuse. The link will be down in the description from here on out, as it was last video. Answer the poll question, okay? No excuses, no equivocations. Answer the poll question, all right? And so that's going to do it for this installment of the Redskins Nightly News. It's been a very successful first week of the program. Looking forward to 16 more weeks of this. Should be a lot of fun, a lot of content coming your way via our Redskins. And so let's enjoy this first week of football. Celebrate! Football is back, and our boys will be on the screen come 1 o'clock Sunday afternoon. Hopefully, we'll be talking about a win sometime in the 4:05, 4:10 window on Sunday afternoon. We'll be talking about a Redskins win and going to 1-0 on the season. We'll see what happens. In any event, remember, as Skins fans, we've got skin in the game. Why? Because we're Redskin fans for life. I'm your man, Louie T, signing off. This has been the Redskins Nightly News. See you on Sunday for the R3, directly after the Redskins game on Sunday versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Win or lose. See you then.
Louie T Network.